Hugh Crothers, welcome to the Small Business Big Marketing Podcast.
Thank you very much, Timbo. Great to be here.
Mate, a fourth generation family business. I mean, this is rare in Australia. I interviewed an eighth generation butcher in Tuscany a few weeks ago, but what's it like working for a business like that?
Yeah, look, it's changed a lot, and I wasn't around at the beginning of it, obviously. Our great grandfather started in the dairy industry in regional Victoria, and there was sort of two to three generations of dairy business, and that moved into more product consumables, and from consumables into sort of healthcare, and from sort of hospital supplying healthcare, and then that moved into pharmacy OTC type products and lifestyle products. So yeah, I think if I could draw a chain or a link between all of them, it would be around innovation.
Mm,
Our great grandfather was one of the first people to introduce refrigeration into milk trucks. So to
wow.
be able to move milk interstate was a new thing. There were a lot of kind of tensions when that came up between New South Wales and Victoria because the milk price could be changed based on supply and demand of that. So absolutely nothing to do with what we do now. And I don't know how he'd feel about
Well,
having a sort of sex progressive brand in our suite of business now. We
Well, I'm
come from a
fascinated to explore that because clearly
yeah,
there were some pretty interesting dinner table conversations with, young Hugh wanting to extend the brand into
yeah.
places that have never been extended to before. But before you do that, so your great grandfather, he was, I mean, clearly an entrepreneur. And didn't he, whilst a dairy farmer, also sort of see the potential health benefits of milk? And
Yeah,
because even Substance, which is the family business, don't you have? I'm just looking at your website now, but don't you have some? It's like a foot bath that
it,
has some dairy dairy
It is.
relevance.
That has absolutely no relation to our past as a business. We have a consumable product we import from Hong Kong called Milky Foot that we
Milky foot.
distribute through Australia under
Got
the
it.
Substance. So just to give you a bit of a 101. I work with my two brothers. We're based here in Melbourne or Naarm, and we have an office in Collingwood of about 12 of us. Three of us are brothers. I'm the youngest of, three, and one is the CEO. I look after sort of business development and I'm the founder of one of the brands, which is Drip, which we'll talk about more. And the other one looks after sort of China, Asia, business development more internationally. So, yeah, we managed to get along and we
How
spend a lot of
fantastic!
time together. I don't know how many businesses have three siblings all in it together. And without a sort of, we don't have our father's not involved at all
Hmm.
or anything like that. He set up the business 20 years ago. He never really worked in it. Had caretakers in charge, and we were all working in very different industries. I come from a design background. I used to work in large architecture offices,
Uh-huh.
which I absolutely hated. My older brother is a lawyer by trade, and the other one worked in hospitality and on super yachts in Europe and a couple of different things like that. And
What
we
a
all kind of,
mix!
yeah, we all came back at different stages when the business was sort of failing. And there was a bit of a call to arms, excuse me, bit of a call to arms moment where we all came back in, and we've probably been running it. I've been involved for about 7 years now, but my oldest brother's probably been involved for about 11.
Now I
So yeah,
know, having done a little bit of snooping, Hugh, 5 years into being the head of marketing for Substance, your brother Nick, who was the CEO or is the CEO, came to you with an ultimatum. He said, either
yeah.
get passionate, young brother, or get
Oh,
out. Why the ultimatum? And what did you
um,
do? How naughty were you?
No, I wasn't that naughty. It was more he knows me very well. We're best friends, and he kind of came. We would spend our weekends together. We'd go to be it a music festival or an event and I don't know the effort that I'd put into something like that, the passion, enthusiasm. Not sleeping so we could have a great campsite or make an amazing costume or something like that for someone's birthday or whatever. And he was sort of saying, well, you need to apply that level of passion that you do on the weekends to your day job. And I said, oh, no, no, I am passionate. I really like health products and all of that. And he said, nah, it's different. You need to feel so obsessed with this business that it doesn't feel like work. That if we have to work on the weekends, you jump out of bed to do that. And if you can't do that in a small team, and at this stage we're only a team of about six, so it was a much smaller business. So you can really tell, the um, yeah, when someone's not feeling it like they
whether
should
you're in it
be.
or not. I really love, Hugh, the fact that Nick, whether he used the words feel or obsessed, but obviously clearly that was where he was headed. It wasn't saying like we need you to work more hours. It,
I think if we weren't brothers, he wouldn't have even noticed. So if we were just colleagues, he would have thought that was me. But because he knew me so well, we've spent most days together for, I'm 35, he's 37 or 38. So yeah, because he knew me so well, he could really sense that, and kind of went away and said, well, look, you either need to leave, or you need to decide, we need to bring something to this team that you'll feel passionate about, that you'll feel energized about. And it probably took me about 3 months. I'd spent, by the way, I'm gay. I grew up in Melbourne, in the sort of leafy inner eastern suburbs of Melbourne. Very privileged upbringing, acknowledge that 100%. And I came out at about 18, my final year of school. That was a pretty dark time. I was pretty nervous about that, coming from a, conservative middle class kind of family. Um, and I didn't have a particularly bad experience. Everyone was very accepting and kind of fine with it at the time, which was very, very lucky. That's not the case for a lot of queer young
mm,
people. But I found after that there was really no idea around sex and sexual well-being. I kind of thought that maybe, I don't know, I'd have a gay uncle who would explain all this stuff to me or something like that. And I really just had no idea what I was doing. I would usually get, very drunk on a weeknight or, during uni, and then, try and navigate, yeah, trying to pick up dudes and I don't know, in bars or clubs or whatever. And that was not the best way to do this, I think. And there wasn't a lot of information out there. This is, we're talking about the kind of Howard era, early
mm.
90s or late 90s rather. It's a pretty homophobic time, but also there just wasn't the resources of, I don't know, Instagram, TikTok, the sort of things that young people have today. So I went away thinking about all of that and reflecting on that with the conversation I'd had with my brother, and also knew that we had created a product business. We had an operation system, a quality management system, all of this infrastructure, plus a distribution network. And I was going, okay, well, what product out there could I create that aligns with this idea of creating sex education, that also is, where are their niches within the market now? And this was probably back in 2019 or 2018, before there was this, what is I'm thinking is a bit of a boom around sexual wellness and a real liberation that's happening. You're seeing a lot of brands moving into that space where cosmetics are I think the pandemic helped this a little bit or a lot, but sex is being seen as a part of well-being, in terms of the endorphins, your mental health, all of those things. And that can be, self-pleasure, sex with yourself, sex with one person, sex with 10 people, doesn't really matter. As long as this is all talking about consensual,
Hmm.
adults here, we're not talking about anything outside of that. So yeah,
Because what I'm hearing, Hugh, there, because I see where you, and I quote you, you set out to create a brand as a love letter to your 18-year-old self, which I think it's a beautiful statement in itself. But clearly, the point you're making here is back then, when you came out at the age of 18, albeit in a loving family environment, it was difficult, and more importantly, and I've seen this. I have a sister who was in the same circumstance, a niece, and it was tough, And if you don't have that supportive family where they feel comfortable, it's
yeah,
like, where do you get that education? And back then, there was certainly, I guess, I mean, I'm reflecting. I don't really know because I wasn't looking, but I imagine there weren't a whole lot of brands and businesses that were actively going, "Hey, it's okay, we've got your back. Come along with us." And boy, oh
absolutely,
boy, what an incredible opportunity. I mean, you don't get this
absolutely.
opportunity in business or marketing very often, where there's this gap where people are screaming out, "Hey, build a business and we will come because we need support." And that was you.
Yeah, totally. And that's why it all feels very intuitive as well. It's kind of easy it's not easy, but things are easier because I'm not pretending to be anything. I'm just going, oh, how are those feelings? How does my community feel around these things? Let's create solutions for that. Solutions in the form of content, which is essentially a content marketing platform. But it's called the Drip Feed, which is a blog
Yeah,
that we
it's clever.
post articles onto. We
Quite
post
confronting, I must say, Lou. Hugh, I was reading some things there that little
int
innocent Timbo.
intentionally so, Timbo. I feel like, yeah, we feel very uncomfortable when talking about sex. And for anyone listening, we are going to talk about sex over this podcast, so don't listen
Damn
if you
right we are.
don't want to. Um, but
But
I
but
think
keep your powder dry. There must be another analogy there that would have been funnier. But before you do that, so you okay? So you're not. I just want to go back into that substance and then drip becoming a business thing. You weren't dissatisfied at substance, but your brothers pulled you up and said, "Pull your finger out." There's
yeah,
a pump.
essentially,
And then the
essentially,
first of many. This
yeah,
stuff writes itself, Hugh.
maybe it's put
Yeah,
your finger in. No,
well, then you did with drip. There we go. Lovely segue. Um,
um,
you spend 3 months. You start to get really excited, going, "Oh wow, okay, now
mm,
I've got an opportunity to build a business." Because so often business owners don't either know their why, or if they do, they haven't really got totally clear on it. But that power,
mm,
that Simon Sinek thing, where
absolutely.
why do you do what you do? Yours is just so incredibly powerful and solid,
Oh,
isn't
thank
it?
you. Thank you. That's a huge compliment, Timbo. Yeah, look, I think it really comes from like mental health and well-being, and there are a lot of queer young people, end their own lives really tragically, or self-harm, or self-medicate, or all the sort of things that can come with being different and feeling isolated and alone. And as I say, that the drip feed is really a love letter to that younger self, or that kind of gay uncle mentor, someone who can, and it is all community informed. So we don't write any of the articles. The articles are all written by community members they're either sex workers, sex therapists, psychologists, academics, artists. We sort of have them write and contribute and speak about the area that they specialize in their lives. And then to fund that, we create beautiful products locally made here in Melbourne, that again is trying to fill a gap that I think is really bleedingly obvious when you see the sorts of products that are available, and the kind of ill consideration around the user experience of those products when
Well,
you
it hasn't got
are.
a great, we look at that market and, it does. It feels, maybe I'm being cliched here, but it feels a little bit sleazy, a little bit, let's not go there, that the sexy land Club X type thing
Mm,
versus, that said, you're throughout Chemist Warehouse. Again, we're jumping ahead. Tell me that 3 months where you've gone away, your brother said, pull your head in.
mm.
3 months, Hugh's gone away. What does that look like? And tell us about getting to drip. Were there a whole lot of
Yeah.
other ideas along the way, or did just drip come to you?
Yeah, so to be honest, they didn't have a name. We had to engage a studio to help us come up with the name and the graphic identity and all of that. So it was going to be some sort of sex product offering, and then aligned to a website, online magazine type medium. And I looked at, businesses like Gwyneth Paltrow's Goop, which has, again, the same model, free content
Mm,
and, premium products available on there.
amazing.
Now, we're not going for the audience of Goop, and we're not selling, vagina smelling candles or any of the products that she sells on there. But just in terms of a concept that, if you can give people free content and they value it enough, then the purchase of the product almost becomes like a donation to fund the content. It doesn't, and I know, using platforms, the rise of platforms like Patreon, or podcasting platforms where there is content for free, but you can get something, you can pay if you like. The
Yep.
hope is that people want to see themselves and experience the content that we're creating for free for them, which is in the form of both articles, and then we also do playlists to have sex to, called drip
Yes.
mixes. So we release one of them once a month on Spotify. If you follow us on Spotify, you find us. Drip Sex and Intimacy, I think, is the handle on Spotify. And again, done by DJs to what they would listen to when having sex. I think that's something that came to me, where you're going, oh God, what music should I put on? This is such a opportunity. Be it you're with someone who you've been with for 20 years, or with someone who you've been with for 20 minutes. I think there's so many little moments there that are,
Yes.
are delicate and intimate, and they should be considered in a way that I don't think a lot of brands have considered.
Hugh, you go to your brother Nick and say, brother, I've got it. Don't worry, man. I'm gonna I'm here for you. I'm gonna help you build substance, but I'm also wanting to launch a sexual
Mm.
well-being brand for men. And it's
Mm.
called Drip. How's Nick?
Yeah, he was stoked. No, we're not just for men. We're certainly for all people. Yeah, I guess the definition of who I think our audience is really people who are curious and diverse. So, if you're a kinky couple who shop at sex shops together, if you're, someone from the queer community, if you're a person living with a disability, so many people that are left out of the conversations around sex.
So
It's
pitch me drip.
like the what do you
Yeah,
the
yeah, like
elevator
you've
pitch?
got the you got the.
Mm,
I'm Nick. I'm Nick
yeah,
back in the 4 years ago, 5 years ago.
yeah. So it's something around. Hey, hey, Nick, I've got an
Sit down.
idea for a premium sexual well-being brand. There's an amazing amount of growth happening in this category. There's an amazing amount of liberation and progress that people are making, and particularly around Gen millennials and the generation below, or the Zoomers. They don't have shame. They didn't
Mm.
grow up with church. They didn't grow up with, I don't know, influential parents, or as a country, but also as a sort of Western world. I think we're progressing so much. Things like marriage equality even are just signs of progress, and therefore there's this generation of people that are coming up, and that while maybe boomers find a lot of this stuff very confronting, or they can't believe that I don't imagine my mother's read all the articles on the
You never know.
website. But the generations below don't experience that. They don't feel that. There are people openly selling their underwear on TikTok to strangers. That's a thing. Now that's pretty out there for a lot
Mhm.
of older generations. So I wanted to create a brand that was really shame free, and I used the term frictionless. And that was something around.
Which is kind of weird because you're trying to build friction's everything. Anyway, I digress.
But the frictionless actually came from I got this is a bit of a weird tangent, but I'll tell you. I got an Amazon account during that time, and the experience of checking out on Amazon, if you've got the app, I'm assuming you've got it,
Hmm.
Timbo, but it's got all your details in there, your delivery
Hmm.
address, everything. You literally just swipe and you've
One
bought the
click.
thing. One click. It's so easy. So I was sort of saying, well, why isn't the experience of using sex products the same? So when you're intimate with someone, you're straddling them or you're kissing them or whatever, you have to reach for the lube sometimes. Now, the lube is often under the bed, hidden away in like a dusty, box. You open that box as you're hiding it from your kids or your family, or I don't know, whoever, and you hide it in, what is kind of shame. You're not proudly presenting it on your bedside table in the way that people present Aesop hand soap on their kitchen
Hmm.
bench. So why aren't there products that are really beautiful that you will display that don't look like sex products with horny devils on the or devil horns on them, or blue swooshes that look like medical kind of devices? Why can't they just be beautiful products that you would proudly display out on your countertop, or bedside
Hmm.
table, or wherever it is? And in the opposite to out of sight, out of mind. If you've got the product there, you'll use it more often. I'm very much of the belief that if people are having healthy sex lives, then the rest of their lives really flourish. You're a better neighbor, a better partner, a better, a husband, wife, whatever, colleague,
What's
friend,
behind that,
all of
Nick?
that.
Hugh? What's behind the idea of?
I, I think that's when I'm probably my happiest.
Mhm.
If I've got a fulfilling sex life that I'm really thrilled about and really excited about, there's a lot of endorphins. There's a lot of kind of well-being I think that I derive from that. So anyway, back to the pitch that I was saying, I kind of came to Nick and saying we can create really premium Australian-made products. I found these product developers that we can work with. They're chemists who specialize in this sort of stuff. We can make it all in Melbourne. There's no one doing this, making it in Melbourne. We can also, get it dermatologically tested, make sure it's suitable for people with sensitive skin, have really high quality formulations that contain Australian botanicals. And, I just considered in a way that I think the sexual well-being or lubricant category just hasn't really been disrupted in a way
Mhm.
yet. The incumbents of your KY or your I don't know Ansell Lifestyles or Durex or whatever, these are like household name brands that have been around for centuries or tens of years. They're all, if you look at the as to where they all came from, most of them are a post-war.
Yeah, right.
They came out of the end of the Second World War, and it was really around condom use or assisting condom use. But most of those brands of your Durex and your Ansell and whatever were supplying hospitals with lubricants for surgeries, and they just sort of went, oh well, we can slap a label on this and make it a consumable product, not just a hospital product. they didn't go, oh, what do people need when they're in that moment? What should the bottle design be? Should it have a lockable top so it doesn't leak all through your bag if you're carrying it around or going to, the way we experience sex has changed a lot. Things like hookup culture or dating apps and all of that sort of stuff. None of the products that exist with that in mind. They just exist because they're incumbents that have been around forever. So when you flick the lid off and it like sort of, farts all over your hand and you've got way too much of it and you're swimming in the stuff and you're going, I don't need this. And you try and wipe it on someone. Meanwhile, you're straddling someone, you're trying to, keep it kind of good.
Moment's been lost.
Exactly. So why can't there just be discrete bottles with lockable tops that, we use serum pumps so they don't give you a huge amount. You only need a little bit. It doesn't feel like this kind of clunky experience. And when I talk about going back to the Amazon checkout in terms of frictionless, how can we create that moment so the user is at ease and therefore they do it more often? So there's no excuse to kind of not do it or minimizing those excuses. That the products actually enhance the experience rather than taking away from it, which I think a lot of the current incumbents do.
So sounds like a good idea. It's a good pitch. There's a gap in the market. You've got a design background and a counselling background. That's all coming together to make people feel comfortable using a product that previously they haven't. That's all very good. That's 3 years ago that you launched Drip around 2020. Where is it at today? Just give us a sense of products, lead products. You've got about how many? You got 6?
So we've got 8 at the moment,
8?
Or sort of 4 products across 8 SKUs. So there's different sizes of products.
So you got
And
lube.
we've got a water-based lube, an oil-based lube, a sex toy cleaner, and a morning breath spray.
And
Morning
why
breath,
those? Why those?
yeah,
Why those 4? Lube seems the obvious entry point.
absolutely. So water-based lube is by far the category leader in a bunch of sort of either global indexes, but also locally in Australia. There's also amazing growth in water-based lube. It's, can be used with condoms. It can be used with sex toys. The rise of sex toys has been, I don't know if you've noticed that in your pursuits, but you probably would have. They sell sex toys at Cotton On. They're pretty common.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
No, I didn't know this. Okay,
Yeah.
that's
So the iconic David Jones, Maya, Cotton On, these are all places they now
let me
openly sell.
understand that as a brand. So Cotton On for those overseas, I think it's a.
Are
I
there
think
Cotton Ons overseas?
it's an Australian. I know
Yeah,
the guy who owns it. He's got a house just up the road in Noosa.
of course he does.
Anyway, putting that aside, I mean they sell t-shirts, like t-shirts and cotton stuff.
Mm.
Is that what's the idea of Cotton On
I
then
guess they have
selling
a
sex toys?
Yeah, I guess they have a well-being category as well. I mean, I don't know Cotton On well, so you'd
Yeah,
have
yeah,
to
yeah.
ask the
No, it's
guy
just
from
an
Cotton On.
interesting brand extension.
Um, I think pretty much anywhere that will sell like a scented candle now seems to also sell a
Okay.
vibrator. I think Gwyneth Paltrow might have a lot to do with that as well.
Hmm.
She really liberated that, or created, removing stigma from that, which. Yeah, I guess businesses have seen the opportunity. Sexual well-being as a category is growing at about 13% a year, globally, or in the Western world at least.
Hmm.
So there's amazing opportunity there, and the sort of projected growth is similar for the next decade or so. I think the pandemic really sped that up, where people who were living alone or people or couples who were stuck inside together,
Yeah.
all sort of started consuming those products in a way that maybe they wouldn't have previously, and being in isolation from others too. You kind of not maybe. If there isn't the social stigma that perhaps exists when you
Hmm.
are catching up with people every day or whatever. So yeah,
Are you
also you
happy? Are
go,
you happy where it's at? You're 3 years in, Hugh. You've
yes.
got, as you say, 8 SKUs. Correct me if I'm wrong there. I get my numbers wrong occasionally,
Mhm.
but you're around that. Are you happy where it's at in terms
Yeah,
of the business?
yeah. Look, you're always, the nature of business and capitalism is that you always, can be doing better or
Yeah,
want
yeah.
to improve or whatever. But yeah, I'm really proud of a lot of the content we've published. I think some of it is really out there, but I get, some people come up to me at events or things and tell me the way that positively impacted their life,
Well, I was going
which
to
is
say the answer to
amazing.
that
I love.
question wouldn't necessarily be, oh, yes, we've made X million dollars in sales. I imagine
Mm,
for you, as I get to know you, you'd be very happy that the difference that this brand is making in people's lives who have
Yeah,
previously maybe struggled. So how have you had evidence of that? Are you getting emails? Are people coming? Are you becoming a bit of a
yeah.
personal brand in that space?
So we receive anywhere between 3.5 and 5,000 website visits a month,
Hmm.
which I'm pretty happy with.
Hmm.
For little brand, a little battler,
Yeah,
as
little
you
drip.
describe. Um, so that's one indication, I guess. The other one is people coming up to me, people sending us, direct messages on Instagram, and things like that, where people have, seen it, heard about it, and were interested or intrigued by the thing that, just really basic stuff that people haven't been able to find information on. There's a lot of sort of either government sponsored stuff, or there's sort of sexual health sponsored stuff that's relating
Hmm.
to, you know, STIs, STDs, that sort of thing. Where is the sort of pleasure based adult content that isn't porn? We're not a porn site, but where can you find sort of non biased information from people who know what they're talking about,
Mm.
and have been doing it for as a career in whatever aspect or way that is, be it a therapist or a psychologist or a physiotherapist or that
Does
sort
a
of thing.
brand come to mind, Hugh, that outside of the sexual well-being space where it is expected that you have these conversations,
Mm.
is there a brand out there that you go you really admire? They're being inclusive, they're really, they're opening up and realizing how diverse a world we live in these days. Is there a
Yeah.
car brand or an insurance brand or
I
even a
mean,
small business?
uh,
No.
Yeah, interesting. No, no, not that there isn't. I mean, I know brands like Subaru have been marketing to queer people or same-sex couples for decades. It's not a new thing for them. Brands like Absolute Vodka or whatever. But I feel like maybe I imagine that's a bunch of um, executives sort of going, oh, look at all the money we can make from these,
Yes.
double income, high disposable income, no kids or dinks, as people refer to them as, or us as. I think that's probably where that's coming from. I'm not sure how much sincerity it has. They slap a logo on their,
Mm.
or they slap a pride flag on their logo for Pride Month or whatever. But I'm not sure how much
It's a bit
true
see-through, isn't it?
connection. A little, yeah, I
Mm.
would hate to say, but there are definitely businesses out there that are doing great things and that support community. But yeah, and I mean, even the visibility of what a brand like Subaru was doing in the 90s, that was the first time anyone had ever done anything like that. So yeah, in the same way, we're trying to create visibility. I guess it's a bit more confronting because it is around sex, these sort of unspoken topics that people don't generally, speak about.
You're in Australia's biggest chemist chain in Chemist Warehouse. That's a pretty impressive, box to tick given you're only 3 years old. I imagine substance had a fair, your family business had a fair influence there.
Yeah, so we're only doing a trial with them at the moment. So we're in about 20 of their stores.
Hmm.
We're not sort of in 500. You can buy it online though via chemistwarehouse.com.au. But yeah, certainly the existing relationships I had established as the marketing manager at Substance, super helpful. And the experience I'd had in product marketing, understanding those levers to pull, and yeah, the connections you've made with people over the years, was certainly influential in that. It's still very early
It's a
days
great
though.
example that market. I know Chemist Warehouse for a fact are looking or have medicinal marijuana, and they're looking at launching that nationally. The whole I guess we're going to be
Mm.
going into Chemist Warehouse in the future. All things being well and drip going well, we'll be buying sex toys in Chemist Warehouse. I mean, you
I,
get
I
lubes and condoms. I mean,
I imagine the only thing, the only concern I would have is the shelf space. It's a pretty rammed place. There are products you can't reach up there because there's so many available.
mhm.
And they're an amazing partner. They've been so supportive of us, and even in doing drip, which is really wonderful. Yeah, and they're an Australian, they're a Melbourne-based family business. We're in Collingwood, they're in Preston. It all feels very kind of
Nice.
local, which is lovely. Yeah.
Well, and they have a good. I've interviewed Jack Gance on this podcast a number of years
Well,
ago, and those two brothers who started Chemist Warehouse, they got their start from products. They had
mm,
Australia. Well, they were chemists by trade, but they
mm.
started Australis, Specs, and
Yeah,
Latan
yeah,
products. So they get you. They
yeah,
get you.
totally.
It's what I find fascinating about drip. A number of things, Hugh, but in terms of sales. I just would have thought, and I think you thought the same, this is going to be an online business. You are going to have a Shopify website and it's going to go bananas. Less than 10% of your sales are online.
Yeah. So originally, with the existing business we had, it was very much a retail focused business, and with Drip, we really wanted to not create that. We wanted to create a, you know, you hear of the success of a brand like Frank Body or those sort of online businesses that are beautiful and amazing. They've done such a great
Yes.
job in their presentation. So we wanted to be a sort of sex version of something like that. But we've faced enormous hurdles with the sort of censorship nature and the kind of archaic nature of tech. And people don't realize, but Instagram, Facebook, Google, they're all really super super censored platforms. And you can't pay. We've never paid for an ad on in Instagram. We've never been able to, which was something we just didn't expect at all. We sort of thought that being a consumable product that's legal and sold to adults, like we're
Yeah.
not selling drugs,
So
or I don't
explain
know.
how difficult is it? So you can have, you've got Drip has an Instagram, Drip
Yeah.
has a Facebook. I mean, you are online organically, but the
Yes.
minute the minute you boost a post or the minute you run an
You
ad,
can't boost a post, can't run an ad. And then you also get what's called shadow banned. So unless someone types in, you don't end up in anyone's explore feeds at all. So that's where a lot of
wow,
people explore and find things. But then also, if you try and type into Instagram our handle, you have to get the handle spelling exactly right for it to come up. If you type drip lube or drip something, it has to be drip feed dot life, even down to lif. It still doesn't come up. You have to put the e. So just things like that create all of this. I don't know. It's impossible too, because as a small business, you're trying to talk to someone. You're like, cool, I'll just call the guy at Facebook or the guy at Instagram, and there's just no
mm,
one. There's no one to
mm,
speak to. There's no client services, and there's no other way of advertising anymore.
incredible.
Like you can't put an ad in the, I don't know, all the other mediums, that the magazines people used to read. Well, they're not reading them. They're on Instagram. The community newspapers or things like that. People don't read them. They're on Instagram. So they've
Hmm.
kind of they've taken away all of the other advertising mediums all the communication mediums that you would do as a small startup brand. And then they've blocked brands like us being able to, and we want to pay them money. Like
Yes.
we're trying to
Yeah.
pay. We're not trying to like get it for free or anything.
'Cause
Anyway, so
I don't think old Zuckerberg's sitting back going, "Oh, geez, if only we could get some money out of the sexual well-being." He's not struggling, but I get it. I mean,
no.
there is certainly an opportunity there.
But we have actually the best ways we've been able to communicate is via sort of PR mediums and like posters, outdoor, paste ups, rock posters, those sorts of things.
Oh, wow.
Just because we don't have, we're not, the message we're selling is not illegal, or it's not even that crazy. I don't think. And none of our imagery is, particularly. I don't know. You look at the types of porn people watch, and it's wild compared to what we're trying to do in selling a bottle of vegan lube. Um,
Tell me
but
about
that's
the rock
been,
post. I don't think I've interviewed a business owner that's used the rock poster medium. So,
yeah,
are there businesses that say, "Hey, listen, give us a design and we'll go and stick it
yeah.
up all over bridges, all over Melbourne and Sydney and Brisbane."
Yeah, so we've used them. I think we've done three campaigns: Melbourne, Sydney, and another one in Melbourne, throughout different periods. And yeah, they basically will print. They've got a big printer that prints posters, and then they drive around town and stick them all up over hoardings or
Is it legal?
yeah, building shots. I think so. I
I
think
think so.
I don't even know, and I paid them a bunch of money.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I believe if it says I think it says no bills posted here or something like
Yeah,
that
yeah,
if
yeah,
it's if
yeah.
you're not allowed to do it. So we have, I don't know, we've done it, they've done it. I don't know.
Wow, what a marketing challenge you have. So you can't
Mm,
run ads on social media. You don't have the budget probably right now to go and buy magazines or some serious
mm,
outdoor or anything. Whether you would or not, it's questionable. Content marketing, clearly, publicity, being on
mm,
podcasts like this. A brand that comes to mind, and I'm sorry to cheapen Drip, I don't mean to, but Adam and Eve
mm.
is a sexual well-being, or it's really a sex toy brand, isn't it? But you hear
Yep,
them being promoted on podcasts and
yep,
blogs, and it would appear that they have a very lucrative affiliate program for
mm,
people to join, and if I was to promote Adam and Eve on this podcast, / Timbo, and I get
Yeah,
a
and you do them.
30%
Yep.
kickback or something. Have you looked at going down that path, or is it cheap?
Yeah, look, we've looked at a bunch of different things like that, and it's really hard to know. I mean, with the rise of things like OnlyFans, I assume you know what that
Hmm.
is, Timbo. We've looked at and we've worked with a couple of different content creators on that platform, and we've looked at doing both discount codes but also product placement in the videos they create. So, in the same way that an influencer puts products on their, I don't know, Instagram feed, these people are using the videos in their using the products in the videos that they create.
So
Um,
that's such a fine line for a brand like Drip,
mm,
where I'm trying to find the right words here, but there's levels of porn, and let's
mm,
face it, from what I can see on OnlyFans, um, it's porn. It's not
yes,
like
yeah, it's absolutely
artistic.
fine.
What's the space that you're trying to create? It's sort of artistic. Oh, gee, help me here. I'm lost.
So, I mean, there's a whole world of OnlyFans creators. Some people just post the types of milkshakes or the smoothies they drink in the morning, and you subscribe to watching.
Yeah,
I don't know. Kim Kardashian. I'm just making this up. I don't know
yeah,
if Kim
yeah.
Kardashian makes smoothies, but you're subscribing to a Kardashian and their smoothie routine, or other people are going, hey, this is my exercise routine, or this is the way I do this, and you subscribe to that. But the bulk of which are adult content creators. So yeah, they're making porn.
And you
Now,
don't want them. You don't really want them to say, "Hey, by the way, go to
well,
dripfeed.live /me."
yeah.
And
Well, as individuals, depending on what kind of content they're creating, and there's a whole variety of porn in terms of the different body types, different people, different scenes, groups or singles or whatever they are. So there's actually ways to align our audience and the kind of people where that curious and diverse, which I said earlier. What are the types of essentially influencers, but they're porn, porn porn stars, do you call
porn
them?
stars,
Content
yeah,
creators, porn stars. That's what we used to call them. Which ones of those do we align with as a brand, and how can we, provide them with great products that they're not
hmm,
necessarily, holding the product up and talking to camera, but if they're using it in the scene, and people see that, and aspire to be like that person or have sex with the types of people that those people have sex with, that yeah,
got it.
and we then can do discount codes that in the commentary or in the what do you call it, the
Comments,
captioning, in the
captioning.
captioning, that they can include that sort of information in there.
Hugh, the marketing challenge is significant. I imagine budgets are limited as the business grows, but I imagine you're putting all the dough back into the business as it comes
Yeah,
in.
absolutely.
Um, to me, and I talk a lot on this podcast about helpful marketing. It's sort of my shtick, where like
Mhm.
someone has to be the most helpful in your category. It may as well
Mm.
be you. Would be a bit of a mantra of mine,
Mm.
no matter what business I speak to. You've got the blog over at dripfeed .life, and it's a
Mm.
great blog. There's great opportunities here. I mean, YouTube would appear to me for you to be just an incredible opportunity to have educational material, entertaining material, a mix of both.
Yep. Yeah,
It's
absolutely. We
huge.
we we have got a YouTube account, and we have put some videos on there. Again, they've been censored though, and blocked, because YouTube is owned by Google, and Google have, sort of strict censorship around content. So yeah, there's certainly opportunity there. We have stuck with a classic sort of article. I think that there's something to be said for written form and people actually engaging and sticking to finishing and reading an article, and that curious and diverse audience that we're going for, in my mind, is very much someone who's invested enough in a subject matter that they will read an article. It's
Hmm.
not a sort of Twitter audience who will just want to read 140 characters or
Yeah.
whatever it is. That actually, by creating a bit of proper educational content that does have weight to it. Hopefully, that's targeting the same type of audience that, and we're not necessarily, we don't promote any of our products in the content, so we don't say, hey, if you're doing this, use this product or use our lube, or our lube contains this ingredient. We've very intentionally kept the content in
Hmm.
isolation to the products. We don't want it to come off as a sort of, I don't know, yeah, add this to your cart now, and
Mm.
you get free steak knives or whatever. We don't really want that at all. We want this content to be a community asset that people want to contribute to, that people see value in. And then when they go, oh, I've run out of lube, I need to buy some. Oh, I'll try that. That brand that I was reading that article on, because I know
Mm.
that their values align with mine. I know that it's Australian made. I know that it's queer founded. I know that it go even things like community partners. We have three specific community partners that you give to at checkout. That 5% of your order will either go to the Scarlet Alliance, Black Rainbow, or a tech startup called Bumpin that creates sex toys for people living with disability.
Wow. It's a whole new world.
It is. I
You got any
imagine
funny or
it's.
memorable customer feedback stories, Hugh? Any come to
I've had
mind?
I've had I had a couple come up to me and with their baby and say we conceived using your product, which I've never I didn't know what to say to that. I was like, great, did you want
Yeah,
to?
yeah.
Like,
Did you call him or her Hugh?
yeah. Um, and then I've had other people, we do a breath spray product. I've had other people come up to me in nightclubs, being out in Melbourne and sort of breathe in my face and go,
Oh,
and I'm like, oh, and they're like,
really?
oh, see, I'm
Yeah.
using the product. And I
Thanks
was
for
like,
that.
thanks, it smells like work. Um, so
Oh,
yeah, I've had little, and I mean, those are beautiful moments. Ultimately people are buying a product that they're using in like an incredibly intimate,
that's
vulnerable
right.
moment with a partner or with themselves or whoever. So there's a degree of honor I feel, that people are
Hmm.
trusting and believe in what we've created. So when you do get that feedback, it's not like getting feedback on, something that is relatively, yeah, that there's a real emotional experience that was associated with the use of our products, and I really relish in that and feel really proud of that.
One of one of the pitching methods that I've been taught over the years, Hugh, is when someone says, "What do you do?" you first try to establish what do they do. So therefore,
Mm,
you can mold your pitch to sort of hit them between the eyes. So I'm
yep.
interested to know when someone says, "What do you do?"
Mm,
and assuming they're not in the queer community, because your
right.
answer isn't going to be as
Sure.
shocking, I use air
Sure.
quotes, or surprising, when you just meet an everyday person in the street, a
Yeah.
heterosexual person, is that a word?
Yep,
Um,
it is.
what is your response, and
I
what is their response?
Yeah, if it's the most palatable version, if I'm talking to my grandmother or something like that,
Yeah,
I'm probably saying, I am I allowed to use the word sex?
you can do anything
If
you want.
if I am, then I say I run a sexual well-being brand. I leave it at that. If they're interested and they go, "Oh, what's that?"
Tell me
I
more.
would, yeah, tell me more. Then I would say something along the lines of, "Oh, we make premium products here in Melbourne that help with, yeah, sex."
Hmm.
Um, if it's more beyond that, I say, we have a adult content site that creates informed educational content around pleasure,
Hmm.
with a focus in pleasure, exploring ideas of sex and sexuality. If they want to know more after that, yeah, if they've run away, then I probably won't speak to them any further at that point. If we're talking in more of a business context, then I might explain substance a little bit further. And
Yeah.
if people are asking about the founding kind of story and all of that, then I'll cover the subject matter that we've sort of spoken about up until now, Timbo.
Has substance been positively or negatively or neutrally impacted by the launch of Drip?
Yeah, good question. So at the moment, we're still, we're pouring everything, any money we make, we're pouring straight back into the brand. So it has definitely for the first 2 years was relying on the income of the other brands in the business. So yeah, I think it's probably, if anything, it's neutral to positive now. I mean, certainly the staff, everyone is really up and about it, which is really exciting. That work in the rest of the business, and yeah, they can kind of see the potential of it. I think when I first pitched it to everyone more broadly, telling the supply chain manager, "Hey, we're going to start ordering these products, and
Yeah, yeah,
you're going to," they were all a bit, taken aback or whatever. But I mean, essentially, they're just products in the same way that anything
of
else is a
course.
product. I've been to trade shows or expos where a lot of the products on display, you could replace them with bottles of vitamins and it would look
Mm,
exactly the same.
mm.
It's a sex toy instead of a bottle of vitamins. But the way, it's such an interesting yeah, experience where yeah, there isn't the sort of maybe conservative taboo type Australian, and I think we
Mm.
get this kind of prudishness from our English roots, but that really isn't something that's a thing
Mm.
beyond conservative people that live in these. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the reason we're all here, right? Like,
Of course, of course.
so it's
Huey,
bizarre that we don't talk about it.
does that frustrate you? Are you frustrated by? I mean, I can imagine there being a number of levels of frustration. The censorship,
Mm,
the fact that you probably want to grow this faster than you can because
mm,
you got to get the sales in the door. The fact that you sort of still have to, even watching you talk, you still have to sort of say some things with a smile on your face in
mm.
order to kind of soften the blow that the other person may be about to give you. Like, is there what frustrates you the most about building drip?
I mean, I kind of love all of that stuff though. Like I like making people feel uncomfortable. I like feeling a little I like feeling a little bit uncomfortable myself. And if you can make me feel uncomfortable, then I think, good on you. I'm impressed by that, or I relish in that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
When people squirm a little bit, I kind of yeah, I feel like as a queer person, so much media we consume just has no relevance to us. Every Disney movie I've ever watched I've never seen a queer couple, kiss or hug or anything in any of those experiences. So that's a feeling that we're really used to, and I feel like this sort of flips that to the opposite. That if
Mm-hmm.
you are the conservative or the I don't want to say narrow-minded because I feel like that's a really pejorative term, but if
You
you're
just
not,
did.
yeah. If you're not really open to things and this stuff makes you feel uncomfortable, well, I kind of enjoy that. I'll go,
Hmm.
yeah, I've sat through every Disney movie I've ever sat through. I've felt uncomfortable in,
Yeah.
welcome to my world. You're only seeing it in one website in a tiny corner of the internet, versus so many people's experience,
Mm.
and this isn't just relevant to queer people, but it is. It's people living with disability. It's people, with alternative body types. There's so many people that feel completely invisible when it comes to relationships, sex, visibility, all of that. So, yeah, I kind of, as much as
Yeah,
it's
well, that's good, man. I
frustrating,
mean, the fact that you revel in that kind of uncomfortableness is good because you've got to lead that one. You're the boss. What are the next?
absolutely.
Make us feel uncomfortable, Hugh. What are the next couple of products coming off the production line for drip?
Yeah. So we've got a next month. It could, depending on how the global supply chain
Oh yeah.
is going, it might be August, but I'm hoping it's next month. We're going to have a body wipe, which is pH balanced, completely biodegradable bamboo, in a really thick, large format towel, that is single use. So you can use that anywhere before, after, during, as a little aid,
Ooh,
or
he says
um,
jokingly.
and then following that, we're actually, and this was a request through retailers, because retailers have really been our saving grace when it came to
Awesome.
having to pivot. We adult store retailers, pharmacy retailers, all of them, and particularly the adult store retailers have requested larger formats. We went to a 250 ml bottle, but people are asking for a half liter and a liter, which is great. But that's a yeah, it's starting to move in a
Hmm.
direction that I never thought we'd be
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
selling liter bottles like milk or something, which maybe is going back to where our grandfather started. I don't
Absolutely.
know.
What a beautiful circle. Oh, Hugh, good on you, brother. It's great to see a little brand pop up like this, particularly out of Melbourne and all Melbourne made, manufactured, innovated, all that kind of stuff. I wish you a huge amount of success with it, and
Thank you
maybe I
very
can get
much,
you back
Timbo.
on in a year or two's time to see
I hope
just how
so.
big
Um,
the drip is.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate yeah, you taking the time and your listeners listening.
Awesome, man. Dripfeed.life is where people need to go, and if you go on social media, don't spell it incorrectly.
Exactly. Yeah, Instagram, our website. Get in touch if find me on LinkedIn or any of those platforms if you want to have a chat.
Yeah, well, maybe if there is like a small business, like you're saying, Cotton On is now has a section for this stuff. And maybe if there's a small business, whether it be a cafe or dare I say, someone in the medical field, a chiropractor, whatever, maybe get in touch and say, hey, can we stock your product? Why not?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Very
Awesome.
open. Doors always open.
Good on you. Thank you, Hugh.
Thanks so much, Timbo.